안녕하세요. My name is Lyla Lee. I'm the author of the Mindy Kim series. So I was born in Korea. I was born in Cheongju, in Chungcheongbuk-do. And I moved from Korea to California when I was 5. I moved from California to Florida when I was in 3rd grade. And in Florida, I was also one of the only Asian girls in the school. So a lot of my experiences of growing up in Florida are reflected in the books. So when I was growing up, I moved around a lot to the point that by the time I was in 5th grade, I'd gone to 5 different schools. So since I was moving around a lot, books were my only constant friends. Because friends, you can't take them anywhere you go, but for books you can. You can take them wherever you go. So what I did is write a book for kids in that age. The books that I read as a kid didn't have any Asian kids on them. Like there were always like white kids, like Junie B. Jones, Ramona Quimby. So for me, it was very important to write a book about kids who looked like me because I didn't have them when I was growing up. For me, I actually have a very specific moment where I want to be a writer, and that was because I had a very good teacher in 4th grade. Her name was Mrs. Brown. She would tell us these stories, and they weren't just any stories. They were stories based on the kids in our class. So for example, if there's a kid named Ethan and a kid named Sally, she'd be like, Sally and Ethan were walking through the forest when suddenly they saw a dragon. So these stories were very fun, to the point that my entire class tried their best to do their work very quickly, and we all were very excited to hear her stories. So that inspired me to be a writer because I not only saw first-handedly what it's like to make stories and how fun that is, I saw how my friends loved her stories. So seeing that really showed me how magical storytelling was, and that's why I first started writing books in 4th grade. So even though I spent most of my life in America, I always spoke to my parents in Korean, and also we always celebrated Korean holidays like Seoll날 and Chuseok. We also tried our best we couldn't go often, but as much as we could, we went back to Korea, because Korea is where my grandparents and my relatives still are today. My connection to my Korean culture is definitely very important to me, because when I set out to write these books, it's because I wanted the book for other Korean American kids who didn't really see themselves in literature. So I wanted this book to be there for them so they could relate to her. But also I wanted to write a book about kids who weren't familiar with Korean culture, so they could learn about Korean culture and be more understanding of our culture. Write the book, and then I would send it to my editor, who sent by illustrator in Vietnam. And she would use that and make sketches, and I would get to give her feedback on the sketches and say, oh well, it's not that kind of rice cake, it's a different rice cake, or it's not that kind of costume, it's another costume. That is a very back and forth process, and I'm very lucky to have that kind of support from my publisher. And I think one thing that's notable is that for the Lunar New Year parade, at first we had a non-Korean background. So my publisher thought it's Lunar New Year, so what's in Lunar New Year? And they had like a Chinese dragon. So they had a Chinese dragon in the background, and they had like Chinese kites. Luckily, I was able to ask my parents for their knowledge, and they told me that, oh well, you should have Korean stuff in it. So with their help, I told my publisher, could we have Korean kites instead? And these were the kites that are correct. So we paid a lot of attention to detail, so because we wanted this to be a very accurate portrayal of Korean culture. I want readers to take away 2 messages from the book. One is open-mindedness, and also the importance of friendship. Because I actually tell this to all the kids I met during my school visits, that for Mindy, she was very sad because she didn't have any friends, but it only took her one friend to reach out and be like, hey, you can sit with us at lunch, or you can play with us during recess. So I think it's important to be that one friend who reaches out to people and to really try to understand other people's culture. If I were to send out a message to the younger generation, it's to be proud of who you are. Because regardless of what people think, it's really important to be proud of your own heritage and culture. And that applies to anyone, not just Koreans or not just Asian Americans. It's important to be proud of who you are because people's opinions of our culture might change. For example, when I was growing up, Korean culture wasn't cool, so I got bullied for being Asian. But right now, K-pop is cool, Koreans are cool, so we're getting a lot of love, but that might also change. So I think regardless of how other people think, it's important to be proud of who you are and be proud of our culture because that's something that's a very important part of us.